Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. As we're recording this episode, it's May 25th rather, and today is the 1 year anniversary of the death and murder of George Floyd, and it gives us an opportunity to sort of reflect back and examine a little bit, how race relations have been handled here on the South Coast. I'm pleased to be joined by Rob Delaleu. Rob is the Director of Multicultural Affairs at Bristol Community College. Rob, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Good. Thank you, Keith, and thanks for having me today.
I appreciate it. 1 year ago, we were all shocked by the death of George Floyd, and the protest that followed it, the reinvigoration, if you will, of Black Lives Matter, and then that type of movement. Let me just ask you, how are you reflecting upon the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's death?
It's a good question. I think everyone reflects on it a little differently, depending on who you are and what your experiences are. The work that I do at Bristol has been something that what you saw happen in this to George Floyd is not necessarily new. The difference is it was recorded, and the world got to witness it in real time. So, it's where I'm at as far as reflection is just, that has been a pivot in our history because it was recorded. But I'm also looking at it in a sense of there's so much more that has happened prior and after the murder. So it's just so much to kind of take in all at once. But, and reflection is like, where are we now and what's next and what do we need to accomplish in order to bring justice for those who deserve it.
Yeah, so let me just ask you, I guess on a global national level, and then also here in on the South Coast, has the awareness been heightened from what you see in terms of being more racially sensitive and the issues of systemic racism at least being looked upon as acknowledged, if you will, over the past year? Have you seen that both nationally and here regionally?
I think the answer is yes and no, and a little bit of both, right? And more of the same. So I think when the event happened, it did spark something nationally. What you saw in the summer with many of the people going out and protesting and saying enough's enough, that we need to make some change. I think that was well done for the most part, with the exception of some of the other scenes that we saw during that. But I really when looking at it, I think a lot the awareness was there. But now we're looking at what's the sustainability and how are we sustaining this awareness. I think people are a little bit more cautious of it. I think colleges and universities have been a little bit more open. I think police departments have been a little bit more open, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So I think globally, I think there is that, spark and awareness. Some people were very naive to things that happen to people as far as, when it comes to injustices or brutality or things. People didn't really believe that those things take place, and they got to see that in real time. But, again, like I said, this is nothing that's new. And I think it's a good opportunity for how do we sustain and continue this momentum, because right now you can feel that it's starting to die out a little bit with participation, and so we want to see more and more people stepping up and continuing to step up.
Yeah, that we all tend to fall into that category. Even with the pandemic, right? We're coming out of the pandemic. People are getting more comfortable, if you will, not wearing masks, and the state is going to be fully open, come this weekend. There comes with that some complacency in terms of making sure we're still focusing on the main thing. What can be done going forward? I know that, at Bristol Community College, your office has hosted a number of community events, social justice forums, not only for the college community, but we've able to share them as well with the general community right here on FRCmedia. So I guess what more can be done to keep the momentum and keep the awareness right in front of people?
Yeah, and I think thank you for that. And what happens in our society, it's really easy to be distracted. We live in a world of technology. of entertainment, things that, you know, a lot of us don't want to handle the pressures of things that are going on in real time, because they are very stressful and they're heavy. A lot of times we feel like we are too small as individuals, and we don't really, you know, we don't think that we can be the solution, that it's someone at a higher level. So that it would be your, you know, your politicians or your president of the United States. And that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. It really starts with us. In order for us to continue this work and for you to do something, is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable a little bit, and understanding that this is kind of you can't be too selfish. You got to be a little selfless, right? And got to look at how can we support one another. So I've done things like community events. Our social justice forum has been one where individuals were coming at a high rate early. I've seen that taper off a little bit, because I think, again, we're becoming a little complacent. I don't blame people. We've been stuck in the homes for a long period of time. So it's really hard for people to, you know, just think about others when, you know, there's been so much trauma brought to us, you know, as, you know, people of, you know, America and our local community. But I really encourage individuals to say, you know, well, what can you do? And well, the first step is to really influence your own inner circle, regardless of how small or big you may think it is. That influencing you're at home, having conversations with your children. If you're a person, employee, and you have an opportunity at work to speak up, to do those type of things, because it's really going to help. A lot of our collaborations, I'm working with the local high schools on a lot of these matters, whether it be, you know, Fall River Public Schools, Taunton Schools, some of the charter schools, Greater New Bedford Folk. I just did an event last week speaking on identity, and speaking on how to mentorship and how that can be influenced, and mentoring or speaking to others that you don't quite identify with, either through racial, cultural, or orientation, or any of those type of, you know, various components that makes us who we are as people. And then, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, you know, again, continue the conversation moving forward. And I love your idea of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because a lot of people don't know how to handle these types of discussions. And, you know, let me just ask you this. You know, we're hearing a lot from our political leaders, both on a local, statewide, and a national level, about things that can be done. You know, what kind of role can government play? And, you know, there's a lot of skepticism around government, right, and what they can do. Is it well founded? And I guess, what kind of role can they play?
So I think the government can give voice to individuals. You know, I think in higher ed and secondary ed and elementary ed, you know, education is important. There was, you know, there's opportunity here for, you know, the local government to say, all right, what is needed? So like the state of Massachusetts, for instance, has really spurred the equity agenda, and that they want all the schools to really adopt what equity really truly means, and what does that mean for our students that attend high school, middle school, elementary, and the colleges. And I think our local politicians and politics can really get behind that and say, do we have the appropriate resources for these areas to really help educate our students? Because that's going to start there, right? Because we don't expect every home to understand it, nor does homes have the opportunity to really study a lot of the history and a lot of the things that have happened over God knows how many years, right? You know, you're talking about generations of policies and procedures and systems that are developed. So it takes our education system to kind of introduce these things. Not saying that everyone's going to be a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, but allow people who are in these roles to be into the schools to kind of really help and teach our students about the differences that many of us are. Like we speak different languages, we're different genders, different identities, different backgrounds, and really give a voice to the voiceless, because they don't have that in our curriculum or in our education. And I think that's important to really bring out and to have that be part of it. And that will also then spur down to relationships that we build with, like right now, I'm working with our local police departments and working with our local government, and doing a lot of community integration events and things like that to really start having that conversation, but not just the conversation, but then looking at what are the actionable steps to take. What is the next part? What's phase two? We've been talking for a long period of time, over years and years and years. And now it's time to really start taking some action towards it and try to be as inclusive as we can, where everyone has a voice, where we all feel comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And also, creating, and I know you say this a lot of times, or just about every time you've held one of the social justice forums at Bristol, that, we want to get everyone's opinion, and that, these discussions should be held in a safe space, right? Where people should be respected for their opinions, regardless, because the dialogue is the important thing. So, Rob Delaleu from Bristol Community College, the Director of Multicultural Affairs, thank you for your time as always, and we'll talk again soon. I appreciate it.
Always. Thank you so much, Keith, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you for joining us on FRC Media. Have a great day.